Guys, have you noticed how amazing my skin's been looking lately? I've been using some incredible products from Caldera Lab, and they've been clinically proven to work. Caldera Lab creates high-performance men's self-care products by combining pharmaceutical-grade science, nature's purest and most potent ingredients, and sustainable business practices. Caldera Lab recently released the regimen, and it's super easy to use. Every morning, use the Clean Slate Cleanser followed by the base layer. Every night, use the Clean Slate Cleanser followed by the Good Serum. Personally, I love using these products, especially the Good Serum every night. It makes my skin feel hydrated before bed and even better when I wake up in the morning. There's no risk in trying the regimen. Every purchase is backed by Caldera Lab's 100% money-back guarantee. Try it out for 60 days. If you don't love it, you'll get a 100% refund. No questions asked. So if you've noticed your skin is starting to show signs of aging, like wrinkles, fine lines, or uneven skin tone, I highly recommend you give them a try. Go to calderalab.com/Chael to get a special discount of 30% off to start your journey to healthier skin. That's the biggest discount of the year. It's the same as Black Friday. So visit calderalab.com, use the code Chael for 30% off, or just click on the link below. I've had a few days to process something. It made great headlines in MMA. Daniel Cormier came out, and Daniel Cormier said, now whatever comes out of my mouth next has to matter. If anybody has earned the right to an opinion, it's Daniel Cormier. And he's one of the few guys who is willing and generous enough with his time to share that opinion with everybody else. And when Daniel's speaking, sometimes he's speaking to you, the audience, but other times, while he pretends to be speaking you to the audience, he's given a direct message to the locker room. He's a very good leader in that regard. It's very hard to be a leader with the locker room when you've left the locker room. Daniel continues to do it. I appreciate it. And here's what he said. I will trust that you guys have heard this. I'm about 5 days removed on this, but Daniel came out and he did a piece for YouTube, and he was talking about it's more important to win the championship than to have the money. Okay, because I fully agree with him. And I think you guys do too. How do you make that happen? That's the trick. How do you make that happen? Now, let me tell you some byproducts that are built into the sport for no goddamn reason at all. Time just went by, and like anything, policies start to fall in place. One of them is as follows, and I talked to you guys about this too. Forget about the rankings. Forget about your placement within the rankings. Focus on your placement on the card. You are way better off to be main card than you are to be ranked or to be fighting a ranked guy. You are better than that to be in a co-main event spot. You are better to fight the number 11 guy in the world in a co-main spot than you are the number 1 contender on the prelims, for sure. So when you're strategizing and you're manipulating, strategize and manipulate how you can get to the top of the bill on the given night that you're performing. Again, much like Daniel's statement and Chael's, you put them together. How? How do you do it? A couple of built-in byproducts to the sport. There is built-in media that is set aside for the co-main event and the main event. That's why it's so important to get there. You can't be a co-main event or a main event if you're not a star, and you can't be a star unless you can get to the media. It is the major chicken and egg of our sport. How do you do it, and which do you do first? How do you manipulate to get in front of the media if you're not in one of those top spots? How do you build your brand and grow? Now, the world of social media has changed all of the rules. It has made it possible for a guy sitting at home that thinks he's more clever than somebody else sitting at home, and he's got the work ethic and the drive to go out and get his name out there. Great. Built-in mechanism, one that you guys already know. I do want to bring this to your attention because many fighters that are signed and under contract right now don't even know what I said to be true. And you must study. You must very clearly know the rules of the game so that you can manipulate them. I'm not talking about cheating, and I'm not talking about breaking rules. I'm talking about taking the rules that are there and manipulating them to meet your narrative and your own agenda. It's called a strategy. Not only do fighters not have it, their managers don't have it. The managers are supposed to do the thinking. They should sit their guy down. They should tell him, here's the angle that we're going to go, and here's how we're going to get there. But managers don't do that. Managers are equal dum-dums to fighters. They just got a fighter to give them a cut. Any manager that doesn't have a clear strategy on your career isn't worth his salt. Now, I bring this to you because if you get to a co-main or you get to the main, you're going to have media opportunities. A lot of guys will get up to that spot and realize that's a pain in the ass and not even show up to the photo shoot. It is a major miss. But somebody within the UFC is going to take a note. They're going to go, okay, I have a fighter here. I don't have a partner. I don't have somebody I can, and a note is going to be made. So to make it to the top of the bill, specifically on a pay-per-view, you must be a title fight. That has been tested and true. Dana has never spoken those words, and nowhere is it written down. But if you look back at the history of the sport, you find out that we've developed, as a byproduct, a policy. So it's one of the reasons of getting that title. That's one of the reasons these go hand in hand. With being the big star and being the big money fight and the title, there's also a built-in mechanism to the contracts known as participation in a championship clause. If you were the champion, forget about the night you won it. Doesn't count for a top contender, but when you return to defend the belt, you will now have participation in the night. The reason that that's in place, and again, it's a policy. Nobody has to do it. It is the most generous thing in all of business, and Dana started doing it years ago, but I feel that Dana might have made a miss on telling people why. It's not just to be a nice guy, and it's not to write a great big check that I don't legally owe you. It's to now bring you in on this side of the media opportunities. And instead of you rolling your eyes and think, I don't want to go to this photo shoot today, or I don't want to take this phone call, or I don't want to call into this radio station, being a pain in the ass, instead you're excited, you're incentivized, and here's why. That makes perfect sense. If it gets explained to you, here is what I'm expecting you to do. Here is why you are a partner who never has to write. There is no business in the world that you can get a piece of the action without writing a check, except this one. Dana will give it to you. He is expecting, without ever speaking about it, that you're going to pitch it and make sure people know the 5 whys. Who, what, when, why, and where. That's all you have to do. Tell as many people as you can, as often as you can, the 5 W's, I'll cut you in on the night, and I'll take all the risk. Okay, great. If people understand that. So let's go back to what Daniel said. The title is more important than the money. I agree. How do we keep it that way? And I'm here to tell you other fighters that you're not going to get to be a main event of a pay-per-view if you're not fighting for the belt. Point Daniel. You're also not going to get to fight for a belt in a main event if you aren't a known commodity to the masses who have demanded in the first place that you get that opportunity. Point Daniel. But we keep seeing fighters want to talk about the money fight and the big fight. If you're not the main event, you're nothing. In all fairness, don't ever stop. I don't mean that in the rude way. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop your drive. Do not ever stop pushing. Don't ever stop dreaming. Don't ever start working until you make it to that spot. Once you get to that main event spot, now we're talking about title fights because that's where the title is going to be contested in the main event. So if you're going to go out and you're going to build some heat and it's going to be against an opponent, it makes a lot of sense that that opponent has a belt around his waist. But if that's just not the case, if you got a straight up grudge with somebody and you're in the business of licensed, controlled, legal combat, I don't want to get in your way. I just want to share with you, don't come and have your hand out if the person that you happen to have a beef with isn't the champion of the world, because Daniel's right. Daniel was speaking to you from a personal standpoint. He was personalized and saying, I've made a bunch of money, but I've also had some belts. And now that some time is removed and I look back, the moments that I cherish most had to do with the belt, not with the money. That's great insight. Most of us will never get to know. Most of us will never make big money, and most of us will never be the best in the world. So when you have a former world champion and Daniel Cormier that's coming to talk to you, you got to listen. I want Daniel to be right because I know that he is. One of the dirtiest things that the NCAA and one of the dirtiest things that the International Olympic Committee does is they don't pay the stars of the television show. That is a scummy and slimy move. But you know what? I feel myself drawn to the NCAA and to international Olympic competition more than I do anything else because I know the purity of it. I know why the athletes are there. I know this is about the mission. It's not about the credit. I know this is about the reward. It's not about the payoff. That means something to me as a viewer. Just personalizing. I know the sacrifice that athletes go through. I do agree that they need to be paid. I'm not that guy in the least. But I will also tell you that it's nauseating when those athletes start talking about what they're being paid and complaining it's not enough. As arrogant and disgusting as it is, take the Floyd Mayweather approach. Right, money Mayweather, and he's throwing money around, and he's wearing Rolexes, and he's making $50,000 bets. Think of how disgusting that is. But you're more compelled to watch that and appreciate it and get behind Floyd a little bit than you are the other millionaire who only has to show up for work 3 times a year, largely because God blessed him with something no DNA and made him a superior athlete in the first goddamn place, and he's complaining he's not rich enough. That's annoying. It's very annoying to hear a guy who you sit back and watch, who you're vested in his career, who you giving up time, the only thing on earth you can't get back, and some of the money that you earned as a fan, as a viewer. Have him make it, take the fame, take the credit, do a job where he can be recognized publicly. Do any of you get that? Think of how cool that would be. Think about how much you don't like doing your job. Now imagine you have the same job that you just said you don't like, but let me tell you, let me add this, you're going to be publicly recognized for it. You will get recognition and a pat on your back from your peers and even strangers. All of a sudden, that job's not quite as bad, right? So that's pretty cool. Well, it's a cool and a not so bad part of this sport. And if you do become the world champion, you will forever be known as the world champion. David Taylor just won the Olympic Games. He didn't give a damn about the medal. What he said, and it's the only thing he said, he's made this statement 4 times, and I heard all 4. He said, for the rest of my life, they will call me Olympic champion. And he was so happy and so content. It's a powerful message because he's right. And the same carries over to the world title. You will forever be known as the world champion. If that doesn't mean something to you, you're not going to have the fans. If that goal is not what you aspire to, you're not going to have the fans. You cannot do one without the other, and you can't expect a whole bunch of pay unless you follow the mechanisms and the policy that says the championship participates. So Daniel is completely right. That's got to be the goal. That's got to be tunnel vision. If you have something in your way, demonstrate to the fans that it's just that. Demonstrate this next match or this contenders fight or this ranking fight is a speed bump in the way to me becoming the champion. The championship has to be what matters. It has to be coveted. You must know that yourself or you're not going to prepare correctly. You must let the audience know that is all that matters to you, or they're not going to watch you perform.